I've realized a lot of people are not able to save money.
If you're not someone who actually does not have like a spending plan, who does not keep a track of their finances, you can easily get lost. It's okay. I will not think about my finances now because I don't make enough. Because that is where suddenly, that there's something called the lifestyle inflation. You suddenly just get into that habit of spending more and you'll be like, where is my money?
Tricking your mind on what to spend rather than how much to save will make a lot of difference.
Exactly.
Because there's always pressure, especially for a married couple with a family, or even if you're single who really take their finance seriously, having savings is very important. Hi guys, welcome back to the Fat Kid Show. This is season 3 and I'm super excited to start this season with a fresh new year. And if you still haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, JioSaavn and also Angami. This podcast is going to be all about the finance and how to manage finance. So, I have got a guest with me who is a personal finance expert, and she also provides a lot of courses along with if you really want to learn yourself. Beyond that, her Instagram is filled with tips and tricks on how to manage your personal budget and finance. She's based in UK and UAE both. So I really would want to welcome Raji, and she is going to be our personal finance expert and we'll be learning a lot more with her. Hi Raji, welcome to the Fat Kid Show.
Thank you. So good to be here.
Yeah, how are you liking between Dubai and UK?
Great. I think when I'm here, I kind of come during the winter months here and I try and escape like the winter in the UK. So I think if I can manage that between these two places, it would be great. So yeah, I'm loving it. And also like, I was just telling you before, right? I'm a Dubai kid. I was raised here. So it's just like being back home and spending time with family and all of that. So yeah, it's always nice.
Raji, I would love to deep dive directly into the questions
Yeah.
because I know we have a lot to talk about. I want to know what is finance with Raji for people who don't know.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'll take you like to about 4.5 years ago. So I actually started Finances Raji just out of my own frustration. I was like, why isn't anybody talking about money? It's like considered a very taboo topic. You don't talk about money, you don't discuss anything related to money and all of that. But I was like, I actually realized that all of us might be actually making the same mistakes. Like when I was having kind of conversation, luckily I had some friends who wanted to have these conversations, and we have had these conversations. It was like, I made the same mistakes, they are making the same mistakes. So I'm like, we could have actually avoided that if we've had that conversation before. So for me, it was like, one fine day I just decided I'm actually going to start just sharing my lessons, my mistakes that I made, and that's how it was born. That's how it was born. Finances Raji was born, and it was me just passionately just sharing all the mistakes and things that I have learned, and obviously over time it is proved that that's something people would love to talk about, and it's really just started from there.
What is that one mistake that you made in your financial growth career?
Oh, I would say the one of the very early mistakes was actually, which is again something so many people still make, is actually putting my money into an investment plus insurance scheme. And if you're from India, you would know LICs. They are marketed in such a way that they are such great products. But if you do the math, if you just dive down a little bit deep, you would know that they're not really. And that was my mistake. I realized that, about a year later on, when I actually just, for some reason, I had some interest. So I just started to dive into it and learn a bit more. And then I realized that, it's actually not like what they projected as. And I realized that, I was actually losing my money.
Raji, the thing is, what you said is absolutely true. I don't discuss with my finances with my parents as well. I don't have anybody to guide me, and I want people to talk in my language as a millennial. This is one of the biggest things. And learning finance and learning personal budgeting has always been just a trial and error. So when I came across your page, that was one thing that, wow, she's relatable. She doesn't talk those fancy finance terms which nobody can
Jargons.
understand.
Yeah.
Because I don't belong to a financial background. I have never studied finance. I've never, ever, ever spoken to a CA or talk about how do I manage my finance. So for me, those are very overwhelming terms.
Yeah. No, you're not alone
Yeah.
because, I kind of feel like there are two reasons why people don't talk about it. One, there's nobody to discuss, just like how you said, it's considered such a topic that we don't discuss anywhere. And secondly, if at all they do discuss it, it's probably with, professionals, finance professionals, who unfortunately most of the time just throw jargons at you
Yeah.
and kind of gatekeep it, where it just makes you feel like, oh my god, this is something I'll never understand, it's just going to go over the top of my head. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to listen to this person who seems to know
Yeah.
their thing, and I'll just blindly follow them, not
Right.
question it. And because if you start questioning it, you're like, am I stupid? Is it just me who don't understand all this? So this is something I hear so often. So, which is why I try and make sure that when I speak, it's something, I don't use jargons. I try and like break it down as simple as I can.
What is that one mindset block that when you talk to people is when you feel that, okay, this is something that's really traditional, but that's not going to work with their personal budgeting right now? What's that one thing, that mindset which people carry when they come to you?
I think, like I said, many people think that managing money and, just when it comes to their finance, financial stuff, it's something that they cannot understand. And you can't blame them, because it just goes back to what I said. One, they have not had such conversations before. And secondly, if they have had, it's mainly, that they have just been overwhelmed by all this information. So they, like, deep down, they just think that this is not just for them. Or, when it comes to managing their money, when it comes to investing their money, any of these things, they just think, this is beyond me. But the truth is, we just need someone to tell us, like, explain it to us in very simple words, then we all can understand. It's very similar to cooking, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm not a great cook, but when I was growing up and I used to see my mom cook, I was like, oh my god, I'll never be able to cook,
Yeah.
because how am I supposed to know if the onions are, enough, or if that's sorted and all of that? But once you start doing it, like, you're like, okay, you can understand.
Yeah.
You start getting those
Getting hang of it.
exactly. And it's the same thing. It's just that removing that, trying to just, or give yourself a chance to just, see, okay, let me give it a go and see if is it actually me who can't understand, or is it just the fact that I've not been given enough information and therefore I do not understand.
But Raji, the biggest problem right now when we talk just about UAE as an expat, it's a tax-free income, which is great.
Yeah.
But I even me being in this country for a long time, I've realized a lot of people are not able to save money. What do you think is the reason?
Okay, with respect to UAE, I really think that there's this phenomenon of, like, trying to keep up with the Jones. Like, there are so many ways you can spend your money here, and there's always this pressure to, look a certain way, have certain things, ride a certain, a car or SUV, or have that particular bag, get your nails, and there's so many. There is that pressure. There's a pressure of keeping, which is kind of known as, like, keeping up with the Jones. So technically, you are kind of forced to spend money without even you knowing it. So and I sometimes really feel that when I come here, like, maybe because I've been away from this country for a very long time, and when I come back, I'm like, okay, I kind of get why people unknowingly spend a lot of money. So I personally think that is one reason. And secondly, there's just too many ways. There's, that we
Yeah.
can spend money. Like, go just, if you just go out for a brunch, that itself is going to cost you, what, I don't know, like 200, 300
Yeah,
dirhams
easily.
easily. And there's just like restaurants opening every single week. So I think that is definitely something. So which is why, if you're not mindful, if you're not someone who actually does not have, like, a spending plan, who does not keep a track of their finances, you can easily get lost. You can very easily get lost in that spending, yeah, wherever
I
that is.
agree. I think there's a lot of competition, and knowingly, unknowingly, you are part of it. If
Yes.
somebody is getting nails done, I would want to get it done as well,
Yeah.
just because somebody else is doing
Yeah.
it, without realizing my own financial background and how am I budgeting. But one thing is, one more misconception people have, that you need to have more money to have a personal financing.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I think so many people think, oh, you know what? If I'm only making X amount now, it's okay. I will not think about my finances now because I don't make enough, and I will think about it when I get my next promotion, or when I job hop and I get another job and I get a higher salary. That's when I'll start thinking about it. But something I always say is, if you're like on 1,000 dirham salary, or if you're on a 10,000 dirham salary, if you cannot live within your means, it'll be the same thing when you jump up to a 10,000 dirham salary as well. You will still struggle, because that is where suddenly, that there's something called the lifestyle inflation. You suddenly just get into that habit of spending more, and you'll be like, where is my money? I mean, I got a raise. I've got a much higher salary now than what I was before, but I'm still not saving. And that's called lifestyle inflation. And that is why I said, whether you are in, 1K, 10K, 100K, whatever that is, you should have like a plan on how you want to spend and save.
Yeah, and people here are also going a lot in debt and credit cards. This is one of the biggest
Yeah.
problems of UAE. But beyond that, so according to you, there is absolutely no minimum salary that one needs to have a personal budgeting in place, right?
Yes. I mean, whatever your salary is, you should have a budget in place. You should exactly know where you're spending, what you're spending it on, and, keep and live within your means. If you are someone who's on a 5K salary, you cannot live like someone on a 10K salary.
Yeah.
So you have to live within your means. Now obviously that might mean cutting down costs, and some, like, I kind of feel like people just hate when they're told, I have to cut down my costs. But yes, if you are at 5K salary, you have two options. Either you cut down your costs and live within that 5K salary, or you find ways to increase your income.
Correct.
These are the two ways. But I mean, it's up to you. You can pick both, or you can choose either one of them. But the underlying, idea is that you stick to your whatever income that you make, and your outgoings should never be more than in your incoming. And that is where, when it is higher, that is when people start depending on credit card, and now then suddenly they are in a, just in that loop of where they're just paying off their credit card every single month, and it's just never ending.
Yeah. So Raji, okay, let's start with the personal budgeting on how do I manage. If suppose, for example, I have, like, say for example 10,000 salary, which is average for a lot of
Yeah.
people at a mid-level position. How do we budget? How do we start with the budgeting? Because 2025 is here. I'm sure that this is a perfect time for
Yeah.
people to actually start budgeting the entire year. What are the things that I should be keeping in mind? How do I understand my expenses versus which is not necessary, and which is luxury and which is necessity? How
Yeah.
do I do it?
So something that I always tell my clients, or when I do like corporate sessions and all of that, something that I always, and something that I personally stick to as well, is that you want to classify your or categorize your monthly income into three categories. Okay, so one is needs, one is wants, and the third one being savings. Now, needs means these are your absolute, like, bare minimum. Like, these are your essentials, right? Like rent, or if you have a mortgage, then that one, or utility bills, groceries. All these are things that you have to pay out every single month, whether you have an income or not. Because otherwise, you're losing your electricity, or you don't have a roof over your head. So these are your bare minimum. Like these are like kind of fixed costs, because
Yeah.
they are going out every single month. And then we have the wants, which are technically, the things that you want to spend your money on. The one, you want something. So things like getting your nails done,
Yeah.
or eating out, brunches, and going on a holiday. These are things that we actually do because it just makes us happy, right?
Yeah.
It's for our happiness. These are not like essentials, but it just makes us happy. And of course, the third one, is quite straightforward. Savings is basically you keeping some money aside to save. So when you categorize these into like three buckets, what I would say is, out of your 10,000 dirhams salary, keep 50% of that for needs. So that is like 5,000 dirhams. So technically, the maximum that you can spend on your needs area is basically 5,000 dirhams. So that's 50%. Then the remaining 30% will go into your wants. 30% of that 10,000 is 3,000 dirhams. So, that's where you start looking into like your, how much are you spending on eating out? How much are you spending out on going for brunches or, any of those leisure activities shouldn't be more than 3,000 in a month. And then what that means is then you're left with 20% as savings. And what I would say is always aim for at least 20% of your income as savings. Get into that habit. So if you are someone who is, living by yourself, or if you are like a single income household or like on a 10K salary, maybe that might be a little bit difficult for you. So that's when I would say maybe go for a 60-30-10 rule. So your 60% goes into needs, 30% goes into wants, and then 10% into savings. But you see, the bare minimum, I want each one of you to actually aspire towards is having at least that 10 to 20% as savings. Now, if you are someone who's on a 10K or 20K or whatever that is, do that math. Sit down and check what are my expenses like. If I were to categorize all these into like these three categories, what does that percentage split look like for you? And that is a game changer, because that actually helps you understand on a high level, where are you spending? Where are you spending the most? Am I within this scale? And that, I think, from there you can like take your next step of like making changes and tweaking accordingly.
So do you say that tracking your expenses down on a daily basis is one of the key?
I wouldn't really say track it down on a daily basis, because that's quite hard to actually keep up. What I would say is try and do like once a month, take maybe an hour or so and then just kind of go through your expenses once a month. Now, if that's difficult for you, because let's be real, even that is quite hard to stick to. What I always say is kind of automate your finances. So like something that I tend to do is I actually have, of course, like a salary account. We call it a salary account here, right? So that's where our salary gets credited. Then I have two other accounts. So the second account is where I will say I'll move the 50% of my needs into that second account, which is called the needs account. So I'll just instruct, my bank to, saying that
Automated.
Just automate it. Just send on the 10th of every month, or whenever you receive a salary, basically on that day, just send 50%. So if on a 10K salary, 5,000 into my needs account. And then the other account was my third account, is basically going to be my savings account. And then I'll do the same thing, automate another 20% into my savings account. So what that technically means is, from your salary account, you have now moved 50% into needs account, 20% into savings account. So what's left in your salary account is just what is left for you to spend or your wants. So that way you're kind of automating it, and you don't have to keep a track on every single expense, because if you just go into your salary account, that okay, everything that I've spent from here is all my wants, and I was supposed to be spending only 30%, which is 3,000, but now I've spent more than that, or I've got maybe 500 dirhams left before the end of the month. So it's quite easy to keep a track.
You're tricking your mind.
Exactly. And you're tricking your mind, because now you're kind of seeing it, go down. And instead of you thinking, oh, I've got 10K to spend, you're now only seeing that 3K. And it's such a game changer. And I keep saying, like, if you ask me what my monthly salary is, I'll take a few seconds to think. But if you ask me how much I have to spend, what's in my wants account, I would know that in the middle of the night. Because I keep seeing that. I don't see my salary coming in, and I don't see that. By the time I'm up in the morning, my salary is all like split in different accounts, and I only see what's left for me to spend. So that's the way I keep a track of it. And I just have to go into my wants account and just see, okay, I've got X amount left before the end of the month. Yeah. So accordingly, I can either go out or maybe stay home.
This is a great perspective because tricking your mind on what to
Yeah.
spend rather than how much to save will make a lot of difference.
Exactly.
Because there's always pressure, especially for a married couple with a family, or even if you're single who really take their finance seriously, having savings is very important. Especially with a Desi community, this
Yeah.
is the biggest thing. I've
Yeah.
never heard about anybody else talking about savings as much as we guys
Yeah,
do.
yeah. I think yes, definitely. I think savings is a very, yeah. We've been always told from a very young age, which is great, by the way.
Yeah.
That we have to save. So many of us, at the back of our minds, at least know that we have to save.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We always have this thought every time we get our salaries, we do have it in
Yeah.
mind. We do it or not is a
Is
different
it different?
But again, it really comes down to the same thing. My parents never taught me on how to save. Nor did a lot of people's parents. They taught them how to
Yeah.
save, and this is the biggest drawback.
Yeah.
Even after saving, the next thing becomes this investment. What do I do with that money?
Yes.
Okay, I have it when I need it. I will always have it. But before we get into that, Raji, I want to know that when you say that you have, for example, the 30% for your wants. Do you prefer giving it by debit card or credit card? This
So
is
it's
one
up
thing.
to you. If you, I mean, many people, especially in this region, they depend on credit card because, there are just great offers,
Cashbacks
right?
and
Exactly.
offers.
Cashbacks, points, miles, and all of that. So, which is why a lot of people use credit cards. So, for someone like that who use their credit cards, what I would tell them is, firstly, if you're using a credit card, make sure you pay it off in full. Don't just leave, just stick to the minimum balance, but pay it off in full. And instead of actually waiting till the end of the month to pay it off every single week. So
Oh,
just take 5 minutes on a Sunday evening. All it takes is just 5 minutes, and just look. Okay, what have I spent on this week? Right, I've paid off my utility bills. Great, which means I'm going to take that from my needs account, and I'm just going to pay that off. Oh, okay, I've gone for some shopping. Okay, that's in my wants, basically. So what I do is I take that maybe 500 dirhams from my wants account and pay off for that shopping. So technically, you are paying off your credit card, and also you are actually seeing your money kind of going down, decreasing somewhere. Because with credit card, what happens is, again, it's all such a mindset game, I would
Yeah.
say. Because with credit cards, we're just constantly swiping, and it just feels like infinite amount of money.
Yes.
And you're thinking, oh, you know what, I'll think about it by the end of the month.
Yes.
And when the end of the month comes, you're just surprised at how much you've spent, and sometimes it's just more than your salary. Whereas when you do this every single week, it's like you're keeping a track of it. You're making good use of the credit card. You're getting all the points and everything. But at the same time, because you're seeing your money like decrease somewhere else, it just helps you keep, it's just there in your back of your head. Whether you realize it or not, you're like, oh, okay. So now my wants has gone down by 1,000 dirhams. I've got only like from the 3,000, another 2,000 to spend. So that's a great way for if you are using credit card. If it's a debit card, then it's kind of simple, it's quite straightforward. But if it's a credit card, I would say pay it off every single week, and it takes no more than 5 minutes.
wow. You just gave me a reflection of my own mistake when it comes to financial and savings. So I do take my savings seriously, but it is not noted down anywhere. But this one mistake that I've done like few months back was using my credit card. My account is still there. There is no decrease in the balance.
Yeah.
And then I'm tapping my credit card only to realize that I have spent way too much.
Yeah.
But this weekly thing I think will make a lot of difference for sure.
I think that is why we need to kind of see somewhere that your money is reducing.
Yeah.
Because then that suddenly clicks. You're like, oh, it's not infinite amount of money. It's not something for me to think about later, but I have to sort that out by the
Yeah.
end of the week. So I better look into it, which just then means when you see that on a weekly basis, you kind of plan accordingly your next few weeks. You're then suddenly like, oh yeah, I don't think I can make it like maybe the next week. And if there's suddenly, an impromptu plan, or, your friends are like, let's just go out, or you go for some, go for shopping, you do window shopping, you're suddenly like, oh, let me just grab this. But then you're like, oh yeah, but my wants account only has like 100 dirhams left and I can't buy this
Yes,
month.
yes.
So you start having such thoughts, which you wouldn't have it if you were just swiping on a credit card.
That's so true.
So yeah, these are like small things, but
It's just tweaking your brain. Literally, just
exactly.
tweaking your brain.
Yeah, exactly. You're tricking your own brain. No one
You're
else.
making a fool of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is
And I
crazy.
know it works because I've been doing this for the past 10 years.
Yes, for sure. Because I'm really sure about this. Now that you've said and made me realize about my credit card mistake that I've been doing, I feel that, oh yeah, if I start doing this, I will be very much mindful about how much to spend and where to spend. That's why I've seen a lot of people putting those money in the envelopes.
Yes,
That's a new
exactly.
method, I
Yeah,
feel.
yeah. The
I've been
envelope
seeing all,
method. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's again because when you're dealing with cash, right? It's something physical. You again, these are all like I said, kind of comes down to the mindset because you're now kind of taking something physically and giving it
Yeah.
away, and then you see it reducing. So these are all well, knowingly or unknowingly, it's just creating some impact inside your brain,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, I can see it reducing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why the envelope method is very popular. It's especially it's now kind of come back where people kind of stack it into different, and I know friends who do that. So because it just works for them, and if that's for you, great.
Yeah, also, this is something that what our moms did back in the
Yeah,
days.
yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
would keep in different wallets. This is for my
Yeah,
groceries. This
crazy.
is
Yeah,
my saving amount. And
exactly.
also, I read this somewhere, or I was having a conversation that our parents were really good at saving money
Yeah.
because they didn't have the easy access of online shopping and credit
Yeah,
cards and everything. But our generation, is really good at making money. We have
yeah,
so many options in which
yeah.
way we can. But when
But
it
we
comes
still don't save enough.
Yes, we can't. I have a lot of people around me who earn like thousands and thousands of dirhams per month, but they're not able to save. They
Yeah,
literally call us at the end of the month to ask for money, which is crazy that you have the same amount of rent I'm paying, you are paying, where are you spending?
yeah,
And I feel that, Raji, if somebody really wants to do it, they can. When you
exactly.
give me out of 10,000, if you're giving me 3,000 to spend, I will not have so many places if I'm not into fancy brunch or luxury item. If it's a very middle class nominal expenses,
Yeah.
it doesn't take
I
much.
think particularly in Dubai, something when I compare UK and Dubai, I always say like Dubai, you have the option of like having a very budgeted meal to an
Yes.
expensive meal, so it really comes down to you. And that's why I said it really comes down to, the first thing we were talking about. It's really that our generation is in that constant loop of trying to keep up with people around us, trying to look a certain way, trying to kind of look rich. And that is and then on top of that we have like social media, we have all these online apps, which is just kind of
Tempting.
yeah, tempting, and we just fall into it, which is why we have to be constantly asking, like, is this something that I can afford? Is this within my means? Is this it? And that is where coming down to, that 30% wants. If I'm spending more than 30% on my wants, then I'm definitely crossing that line. I'm trying to definitely keep up with someone or something that, whether I like to admit it or not,
Yeah.
that is a reality.
Yeah, and one thing that you really said was great was, and very relatable, that you can have a 5 dirham shawarma and you can also have a 25 dirham
Exactly.
shawarma.
Yeah.
You can get your nails done for 100
Yeah.
dirham or go for 500 dirham. It's
Yeah.
all on you.
Yeah.
You can still look presentable and
Yeah,
luxury while
exactly.
not spending a lot more
Exactly.
money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also just trying to ask yourself, like, what is important to you? Like, I'm not saying don't spend your money, because money is actually, I always say that it's about learning that balance, right? It's about learning how to balance between spending today and saving for tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's really the nut that you have to crack is to learn that balance.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying don't spend your money, but it's really about asking, okay, if I were to spend my money, like, why am I spending it on certain things? Am I spending it because of the pressure from others, or is this because I genuinely, enjoy it? I
Yeah.
genuinely like it. So that's something I constantly ask, when it comes to every single thing, I'm constantly asking. So something like, I kind of feel like, in the Indian community, like, is something like where we never repeat clothes. It's such a, and I kind of get from where it comes, because back in the days, if you kept repeating your clothes, it just meant that you didn't have enough resources or money to actually buy new clothes. So we're kind of carrying that kind of, I don't know, that kind of thought even with us, and we just tend to keep repeating clothes is not considered a good thing. It's changing now, thanks to conversations and conversation on sustainability and all of that. But I still get, sometimes I still get, but I'm like, yeah, but what's wrong in repeating clothes? I don't want to spend too much money on, buying a new outfit or repeating and looking the same way again. Like, that's not important to me.
Yeah.
That's not important to me. But if you ask me, I would love to travel.
Yeah,
I want to spend all my money on traveling, but all that travel pictures, if you see, you will see me wearing maybe the same clothes. That's okay for me. I'm absolutely okay with that. Whereas for you, it might be something else that's important to you. So that is where I think it's really important to kind of look at what is important to me and then spend your money there.
You can't be present everywhere and be good in every
Yeah,
department of your
exactly.
or any aspect of your life. Because
Otherwise, look at increasing your income. That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. Like,
yeah.
if you have a certain aspiration, like where you aspire to be in a certain way, that's great. But then try and look for increasing your income. Like, you just can't have, the best of both, where you are on a lower salary, but you want to look like 10 times of what you actually make. And that's
Yeah.
where you just go down that wrong path, or where you just get in that credit card debt.
Yeah, that's true. Talking about all of this, Raji, now what as a married couple, both are earning average salaries. What are your thoughts about splitting the finance, and how do you look at finance as a couple overall?
So this is quite contentious, but I personally believe that if you are a married couple, it's best to combine your finances.
Okay.
Yeah. And the reason why, like, see it as a household income. Because at the end of the day, my thought process is, if you're sharing the bed with someone, you should be able to trust them to share your finances as well. And and again, it's very important to note that it's very rare that you get two people who are completely aligned with their finances. They have a similar thought process or perspective when it comes to managing money. So it's a lot of conversations, and this is something I tend to have a lot, and I can see that it's very rare I find couples with the same perspective on money, and including myself. It's my husband and I. It's as itself. We have different perspective, but it's really about finding that common ground. But I think if you are a married couple, and if you can combine your finances and see yourself as a team, and then kind of see that as a household income, and then start spending and saving, I think it's the perfect, or it's like the fast track to building wealth.
So, do you recommend putting your salaries and savings in one account, having a account for your needs, which is together?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I do. So, what Mr. and I do is basically, so when it comes to all these, needs, I keep saying now, we've got to a stage, we're like 5 years married, we've got to a stage where pretty much 95% of the time we're together. So our expenses are most of the time, kind of together. But things like, needs, right? All these groceries, all the other expenses, rent, mortgage, all of that is between the both of you. So in that case, what I would say is take that from a common account. Take it, consider that needs account as your common account, and just pull money out of that. And then similarly for other things, right? Even for other ones. So like I said, personally, we most of the time we go out, even if you go out with
Yes.
friends, we're just together.
Yeah.
But so yeah, there might be some times where I might be going out with my girlfriends, or it's just me going out. Then, or it's just me going, getting my nails done, or just grooming myself. So those are kind of my personal expenses. So that is where we have a personal allowance for both of us. So that's where both of us don't know where we are spending that money on. We never ask. I never ask him, oh, what have you
Yeah.
spent that money on? Where did you spend all of that? Neither does he. Because that's just us spending on our will, on things that we want. But the rest of these, we are very much aligned, and we know where that's being spent. So that's kind of worked well for us. And of course, that's kind of taken a little bit of time for us to get there as well. I think it's important to realize that, because again, after speaking to so many couples, what I realize is it's very rare you will find people with the same perspective together. So it's a little bit of work
So
when it
like
comes.
one is a spender, other is a saver.
Exactly.
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that's very common, by the way. Or someone, or when it comes to their investment perspective, one is a risk taker, whereas the other person's quite risk averse. So it's very common. It's so much more common than you think. But I think having that conversation, those hard conversations, can just mean that you get to a middle point, and like I said, then building wealth is so much more easier because now you're a team. And also, if you are someone who, especially if you're planning to have like a family in the future, like kids in the future, it becomes a lot easier because now you're no longer thinking, right, you pay for the child's education, but I will pay for their food. You're not having anymore that your money, my money kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's all about like our money. And you're kind of, sharing that with your kids now.
Yeah.
So you're showing your kids what it is like to be a team and to actually manage money together. So you're kind of setting the right example there as well.
And also the thing is, finance, having a good financial goals and clarity between a couple
Yeah.
will build their relationship stronger.
Exactly. Yeah.
It
Have those
can't-
conversations.
It
Yeah,
can't
exactly.
be like the woman cannot say, I will not give any household money. It's your
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore. It's
Exactly.
2024.
Exactly.
5.
Yeah. Yeah, nearly 5.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I personally think that's the best way forward. Now, again, there are other ways to go about it. There are people, if it does not work for you, of course, then you can consider like splitting your income and then, having it where you maybe share a certain percentage, etc. So there are different ways to go about it. But if you're a married couple, this is what I would personally suggest you to aspire towards. Get there eventually. It might not start off, again, this is me setting the realistic expectation because it might not start off all good at the start, but it's you eventually getting there. Because I think especially if you're an Indian, if you've had like arranged marriages and if you've never really had that conversations about money before, I kind of get it. It's quite hard to just trust someone so quickly. So it's slowly getting there. Maybe that's something that you should aspire towards.
Yeah. That is great. Like wants and needs I'm very much clear about. But what about the saving? What does my money do in the bank account?
Right. So that's very that's like my favorite, part of the conversation. I would say the way you would want to think about it is kind of think for anything short term, leave it in the bank.
Okay.
So like if you're thinking of like when I say short term, I'm talking about like 3 years. 0 months to 3 years. So that's short term. So that's, when people hear 3 years, they're like, 3 years is short term? But in the grand scheme of things, yes. So if you are someone who's maybe like saving up to buy a new phone or maybe for a house deposit or whatever that is, and you need that in the next 2 to 3 years, put that in the bank. Because then the reason is because at that point, you know that you want it in about maximum of 3 years and you want to make sure you get that capital. Whatever you have saved is still there. Whereas anything longer than that, when you're thinking of, maybe things like retirement, or if you're like married, you've got kids and you're thinking, oh, I want to maybe pay for my child's education in the future, etc. So it's a very long time frame ahead of you, right? You've got, especially if it's children, if someone's just, if they've just had a baby, they're like, oh, we've got 18 years ahead of us. So it's a very long time frame. So for such goals, I would say never save. Like never save, but invest. So that is where you're starting to put your money into assets. You're starting to invest into, say, things like the stock market, other asset classes, maybe like real estate or gold. All these different assets, that's where you start looking into. So the reason why I say this and, kind of sharing this, kind of dividing this into two categories is because I kind of feel like the younger generation or like millennials and Gen Zs, they just tend to they're like, oh, you know what? Let me just invest, because now investing is like that mindset has changed and it's kind of considered cool. So everybody's just investing. But were you investing it for how long are you investing? Oh, I don't know. I've just got like some money with me. I'm just going to put that aside. Or, I'm just going to, but it might be that tomorrow they're like, oh, I actually need this money. I was actually investing because I wanted to buy a car. So you see, this for anything short term, if you're saving it up to buy a car, then, and that's going to happen in the next 1 year, then save it. Otherwise, invest it.
So you say that liquid cash is really important to
Yes.
have. Have it for 3 years. God forbidden, you might lose your job and you might need the money. So once you have that certain amount, and that is when you start considering
Yeah, I
saving,
mean that is what that
investments.
that's another good point you raised, because that's something called like an emergency fund.
Yeah, emergency
Again,
fund.
again, so many people they don't have that. They just how, as you pointed out, like if you lose your job, which let's be real, is very
I think
common.
COVID has also set us a really good
Exactly.
expectations about how much money we need to be having in our
Exactly.
bank. Yeah.
So if you have not had that rainy day fund saved up or have an emergency fund saved up, you should not be investing. You should first get that sorted and then get into investing, which again, not many people do.
But what are your thoughts? Like, for example, I have, say, 1.5 lakh dirham in my bank account,
Yeah.
and I want to buy a car which is 100K, okay? Do you suggest that we go and take a loan and keep on paying the mortgage, or give the cash in hand?
So this is a very I wouldn't like, it really depends on that person, right? So firstly, it depends on the interest rate, and secondly, it depends on how this person manages their finance. So for example, if you are someone, let's say you've got an emergency fund sorted and that's all set up, and then you've got, like, let's say you've got another 100K, you're buying a car, and you're like, okay, should I put a down payment and pay a loan on it, or should I actually just buy it outright? Now, I would say it comes down to, one, the interest rate, how low or high the interest rate is. And secondly, what are you planning to do with the rest of the money? If you were to take a personal loan, what are you going to do with the rest of the money that you saved up? Are you going to put that just in the bank, or are you going to invest it? Because technically, if you are going to invest it, and let's say your loan, the car loan is, let's say, 2%. But if you are investing in, let's say, the stock market, which can give you anywhere, from 8 to 10% a year, you're better off investing. But on the other hand, if you are someone who's like, no, I'm just going to leave that in the bank because I don't know anything about investing or anything, I'm just going to leave that in the bank. That, if you just leave it in the bank, it's probably going to give you most likely less than 2%. So in that case, what's the point of you saving up?
Yeah,
Yeah,
makes sense.
you might as well just buy that outright. Otherwise, in the long run, you're just paying money in interest for that car loan.
Yeah.
So this is where, again, you have to, or it could be any other asset class as well. I just use stock market. Some people might use that money to buy maybe an investment property or anything else, or maybe buy gold or whatever that is. The idea is, in the long run, when you look at that maybe 5-10 years time span, where would you be better off? And of course, one other thing to keep in mind is, yes, if something happens to me, or if I lose my job, you still have to pay that car loan. Otherwise, it's
Correct.
just going to be taken away from you. So
Yeah.
are you in a position, again, goes back to the emergency fund. Do you have that emergency fund to actually sustain you in such tough times? So that's, again, something that you have to ask.
Yeah, you mentioned two things. One is the property and the second is gold. How do I know when should I invest in a property?
So is that buying for yourself?
Buying for myself.
Okay.
Yeah. Instead of paying the rent, I want to buy it for myself.
Yeah, I think if you're going to buy for yourself, for you to live, I would say you should be in a position where you should be living in that house for at least 5 years. I say 10 years, but the minimum is like 5 years. Because when you buy a property, it's just what many people think is, oh, instead of me paying the rent, I can just put that money every year into mortgage. But along with that, you've also put like 20-25% deposit, right? Which is a significant amount, plus all the fees that came with it. Like, you have to consider maybe another 100,000 or something is just the fees, which are basically non-recoverable. You're never going to get that money back. So that is where you have to think of that, like the opportunity cost, because you've got a good amount of money that is tied in as deposit, plus all that a non-recoverable cost as well. So that is why I would say, if you're going to be living in that property or holding on to that property for at least like 5 to 10 years, then it'll break even. Then it kind of makes sense. But if you are an expat who's thinking, oh, I'm just going to be here in Dubai for like another 2 to 3 years, and then I'm just going to move out or whatever that is, then it's not necessarily a good financial decision.
Yeah. Wow.
There's
I
quite
think-
a lot to it, you know. I'm like trying to condense it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
really want to share everything, but I'm like, how do I make this simple as
No,
well?
this is a never-ending topic because we
Yeah.
don't have education on it. Honestly, I can keep on asking you more and more and more and more, and it's gonna be like a 3 hour long
Three-hour-long podcast.
Yeah, but I know that budgeting is important. Understanding your needs, wants, and save is the
Yeah,
basic of
basic.
financing.
Yeah.
As a couple,
It's not just basic, but the foundation.
Foundation, yeah.
that's the thing. Many people just ignore it.
Hmm.
But if you can get that right, the rest becomes a lot more easier.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and tricking your mind.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's
That's-
constantly asking yourself, taking that
Yeah.
just a minute out to ask
Yeah,
yourself,
yeah.
okay, why do I need this? And, all of those. So it's just, literally tricking yourself.
Yeah. Okay, Raji, we have a last segment on the show. So, Raji, we have a sponsor of the show, which is Woka Chocolates.
Okay.
So, this is the Unfiltered Sawal, which is sweetened by Woka. And if I like your answers, you're going to win this.
Okay, right. Okay, I'm going to get competitive
Yes.
now.
You need to tell me this or that. Gold
Okay.
or crypto, which is a smarter investment in 2025?
Oops. Do I have to be really fast?
Yeah.
I hate to say this and that.
Yes.
Yeah, but both.
Okay. Savings account or fixed deposit, which is better for the long-term saving?
Neither.
Okay. Self-managed investments or financial advisors, which is better for beginners?
Beginners, self-managed.
Cashback credit cards or low-interest credit cards?
Cashback credit cards if you can pay it off in full. Otherwise, low interest.
Emergency fund or retirement savings?
Emergency fund, emergency fund, emergency fund.
Okay, the second segment is invest, save, or skip. A bank is offering a credit card with cashback rewards for every purchase. Do I invest in the credit card, save by avoiding it, or skip credit cards entirely?
Save if you can pay it off in full.
Okay.
Yeah.
A 2 years fixed deposit account offers 3% annual interest. Do I invest in, that is, lock in my money, save by keeping the money as liquid, skip the deposit entirely?
You mean you take that money and you want to invest it? Or
Yes, it's like a fixed deposit. I
Okay.
keep my money for 2 years at a 3% interest rate. Do I fix my money there or keep it as liquid or just not get into fixed deposits at all?
Oh, okay. So if you're again, there's no straightforward answer to this, but if you are, let's say, you thinking, okay, in 2 years' time, I'm actually going to get something, then it kind of makes sense because you need that only 2 years. If it's an emergency fund, is that what you're saving for? Never put that into a fixed deposit. So any other short-term goals? Yeah, why not?
Okay, and now I have some scenario-based questions. If I just received a bonus of 50,000 dirham,
If
what
you
do I
received
do?
a bonus, okay,
Yes,
50,000.
this is an extra income. What do I
Yeah.
do with it? Invest or save?
Oh, invest or save. Okay. So I would say, of course, treat yourself. Maybe, like out of the 50,000 dirhams, do something, maybe take about like 5 to 10% and, spend that money because why not? The remaining money, if you've got your emergency fund sorted, then invest for the long term and forget about it.
And forget about
Yes.
it. Yeah, that is great. I loved your answer. They're very practical, and I hope that my finance in 2025 is much better.
I will ask you.
Oh,
Check
God.
in with you.
It's so scary to have a financial advisor sitting on top of your head. What did you do with your money?
Oh, no,
I'm like,
no,
it's
no.
my money. Come on.
No, but I really hope, you can take away at least one thing and or
Yeah,
even
for
your
sure.
audience as well. And then they can make a change because at the end of the day, that's all what we want. We all just
Yes.
want to get a little bit better with every single day with our money.
For sure. And the biggest lesson has been COVID, Raji.
Yeah.
The biggest lesson has been COVID. People
Yes.
with money survive. People with no money
Exactly.
really suffered a lot.
And I think one thing to keep in mind is because, millennials and Gen Z is generally young, COVID was just the first experience.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Eye-opener?
trying to be negative here, but for the rest of our lives, there will be such dips, which is just normal.
Yeah.
In this lifespan of a person, you will see such, lows and highs. And that is why it is important for each one of us to be prepared for that, such dips in our
And
life.
not just like globally, like COVID,
Yeah.
but it can be personally as
Personally,
well.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And that's going to happen, at some point to each one of us.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's just
The
life.
reality of life.
Yeah,
You can't
exactly.
avoid
But
it.
so you just trying to not avoid it, but minimize that impact.
Correct.
That's what we're trying to do. So when during the good times, we're just kind of prepping ourselves to, if such something bad happens, or something, we're going through a rough time, we're able to minimize that impact by being just financially prepared for it.
Great. Thank you so much, Raji. And this is your
Thank you.
gift.
Yay!
Thank you so much, guys, for watching the Fat Kid Show. If you really loved it, please do not forget to thumbs up this video, comment which was your favorite part, and how do you struggle in managing your finance. Beyond that, if you want to listen, do not forget to listen on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, JioSaavn, and also Angami. And I hope this episode was really insightful and there are a lot of takeaways from it. And I'll see you next time. Bye.